Corsair's new LL series hydraulic bearing fans feature excellent airflow, quiet operation, and powerful lighting with 16 independent RGB LEDs across 2 separate loops. Available in 120 and 140mm sizes and controlled by Corsair's Lighting Node Pro, LL series fans can give your system a distinct and customizable look. Click the link in the description for more information.
Excellent!
What's up guys, how's it going, and welcome back to Paul's Hardware. Today I'm doing my monthly builds video for October 2017, and I am super late this month. It's like October 20th right now. Usually I do this at the beginning of every month, and then I build one of the systems that I part out in my builds video later in the month. Last month I came through, I actually built the mini ITX system that I promised you guys I would build. But for today, if you were coming to this video expecting me to actually build something, check out my builds playlist because there are many builds on it, some more recent, some a little bit older, but all of the builds that I do in my monthly build series are based on your feedback. So I have a straw poll linked down in this video's description about what you guys want to see for November. We had some requests for a super tower max overkill build for this month, which I'll get to in just a minute, but I have a few other options on there. For instance, a budget Core i3 Coffee Lake, maybe something with the AMD's new Ryzen APU. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be out yet, or maybe just a simple $800 gaming PC. For October, for this month, you guys all voted last month, and the #1 request was a scary computer for Halloween. Also second, and just a percentage point behind, or not even this percentage point behind, was a super tower build, a max overkill PC. So what I actually did for this month was I have a super tower build that's the scariest computer that I've ever assembled, and we'll get to that in just a second. But I actually have 3 builds total this month, partially because one of them is sort of a rehash of one of last month's build, and I will be putting that one together. That is a Threadripper entry-level build. Now when I say entry-level, I don't mean like entry-level PC, I mean entry-level Threadripper, which is to say if you've decided that you have a need for a high-end workstation PC, and you've decided that you want to invest in Threadripper, which is AMD's high-end desktop platform with X399 motherboards, how much do you need to spend to build a system that is reasonable surrounding those parts, considering that the CPUs on this platform cost $600 to $1,000, and the motherboards all cost upwards of $300. Then of course I'll be covering that super scary tower build that I put together, and finally a pretty sensible, in my opinion, Coffee Lake build with the 8600K just recently launched from Intel. So let's get right into it with the entry-level Threadripper Redux build, and I'm gonna try to go over this one fairly quickly since this is really similar to the system that I parted out last month. It costs about $1,800 total for the parts that I have listed here, and one of the reasons that I haven't built this yet and that I'm excited to build it soon is that I actually have plans for this build. I'm gonna put it together, and then Kyle and I, leading up to the holidays, are gonna be doing sort of a collaborative, it's gonna be like an auction for the system that's gonna all be donated to charity, and we have a live stream planned again where we're gonna be gaming. But the point is I will be putting the system together, and then we're not exactly sure how we're gonna do it yet. It's either gonna be an auction of the system that gets donated to charity, or we might have people submit just like a basic dollar amount, like $10 per entry, and then we'll draw a winner from that. Still not 100% how we're gonna do that, but point is, money goes to charity, system goes to somebody who actually hopefully can use it. But all that said though, it's based on the Threadripper 1900X, which is an 8-core 16-thread processor. There is competition here on the mainstream side from AMD's mainstream Ryzen platform with AM4. You can get an 8-core 16-thread Ryzen 7 1800X or 1700 even that has effectively the same processing power as this platform. So if you're investing here, you're probably going to upgrade that 1900X in the future, but we'll come back to that. I have a liquid cooler on here from Enermax that's specifically designed for Threadripper, and I have the ASRock X399 Taichi motherboard, which as shown last month, I actually already have here, ready for the build, and I'm going to be gathering up the rest of these parts very soon. Let's start off with the CPU though, which is of course that 1900X 3.8 gigahertz 8-core processor, coming in a little bit cheaper than the $600 MSRP that AMD initially said. Can get it as cheap as $525 right now from SuperBiz, or $540 directly from Amazon. So Enermax has been developing their Liquitech TR4 edition coolers. This one was recently tested specifically by Gamers Nexus. Steve and the folks over there did a great job testing and showed that when you have a larger actual cold plate that's making contact with your Threadripper CPU, since Threadripper CPUs have a very large heat spreader as well as 4 distinct separate Ryzen dies in there, you get better cooling. So first off, the air coolers that have been designed specifically for Threadripper have been doing a really good job, but water coolers designed for Threadripper that again have that the larger size cold plate are doing better if they have a larger cold plate and make better contact and everything. And I'll post a link to Steve's video in the description if you want to check that out. But a really solid cooler. It's $130. So you can get air cooling like the Noctua fan versions for about $50 cheaper than that, but liquid cooling does do a better job. ASRock X399 Taichi, already mentioned this one. When it comes to Threadripper motherboards, socket TR4, they're all pretty expensive. This ASRock X399 Taichi has a really wide variety of features, including M.2, U.2, 802.11ac Wi-Fi, and just pretty much all the basic functions and connectivity that you would want for a high-end workstation build. And it's $340, and still coming in at least according to Newegg, the cheapest amongst all of the TR4 motherboards that are out there, which range from about $350 up to $550. This one's still about $340. $10 mail-in rebate available too, so seems like a solid entry-level Threadripper choice. Memory is horrendously overpriced right now, unfortunately, so in order to get us a quad channel kit, 4x4 gigs of 16 gig memory that is at least a reasonable speed. I just did a parametric filter on PC Part Picker, which is what I'm using to choose all the parts for today, by the way. Going for some faster DDR4 memory speed, 3000 or above, 4x4 gig kits. G.Skill has some options there. About $175 is what you're gonna spend. This one I'm not really caring too much about color or anything like that. I just want a solid kit of memory to use that's fast enough and not, well, they're all overpriced, but not quite as overpriced. I did the same parametric filter solution for the GTX 1070 that's in this build. You can get one for less than $400 right now, so the parametric filter actually chose the, that's a very tiny picture for a very tiny graphics card. It actually chose the GTX 1070 8GB Mini from Gigabyte, which is very small. It is among the cheaper that are available depending where you buy it, but you might consider something that's a larger size, maybe a little bit better cooling like the MSI GTX 1070 Armor 8GB that's also available there for about $400. But point being, if you want a solid graphics card that's in the mid-range that isn't horrendously overpriced, 1070 is a good option for that. For the case, I went with the Fractal Design Meshify C. This is partially because I have this case already. It's partially because this case has really good airflow, and since there are some higher end components in here that are going to be generating some heat, especially if you're doing rendering or that kind of thing, you want good airflow. This one has it, and a solid set of case options. Besides that, good job by Fractal on this one. A joy to build in as well, and should fit all those parts in there nice and snug, as well as having some expandability area in the future. Finally, a power supply, just went with the EVGA 750 watt 80 plus gold. This is the GQ version, the 750 GQ. It does have all black cabling, so that's gonna look pretty clean. You're not gonna have any ketchup and mustard nonsense in there. It's 80 plus gold rated, it's 750 watt. It's gonna provide you the juice you need for your build. Let's move on to the requested build for this month, which was the spookiest scary build. A fearsome build full of fear and hatred and to scare you guys. I'll be honest, Kyle already jumped the gun on this one. Over on Kyle's soon-to-be defunct Bitwit Ultra channel, which YouTube is making him cancel, Kyle has already posted not one but two themed Halloween builds for October, which is why I didn't go directly with kind of what he did. He has the evil build, which is sorry, I'm not subscribed to Bitwit Ultra on the account I'm logged in on right now, but which appears to be a build full of cobwebs and skulls and candles and stuff like that. And then he also has the RGB pumpkin PC, where he built a computer inside of a pumpkin. I saw this when I was over there for the live show the other day, and it actually turned out pretty fun. So hopefully those will be up on his main channel soon as well, so people who aren't subscribed to Bitwit Ultra can check them out. But I decided to kind of go the other way. My scary build is scary for PC builders out there. And I also have to point out there's a major flaw with my scariest PC build, and that it is pretty much incompatible from the get-go. Here's my idea. I have this motherboard. It's the Asus ROG Rampage 6 Extreme. It's basically one of the most expensive motherboards on the market right now, $650. So my thought was, Intel has gotten a lot of flack for this platform, X299, LGA 2066, and some of their choices for CPUs they've implemented there. What if I were to make the scariest Skylake X system by actually using a Kaby Lake X CPU and just making all of the wrong and improper choices? What I have here is a system that will cost you somewhere in the range of $3,200, and as long as you can ignore the key point that my Rampage 6 Extreme super duper high-end motherboard is incompatible with Kaby Lake X processors, and honestly, Asus, thank you for doing that. It's completely impractical otherwise. Physically, it would fit. I was hoping it would actually work in this, but Asus was just like, no, we're not even going to provide support for that. But if you can look the other way for that incompatibility, here's the rest of the build. We got at the top the i5-7640X, one of the most hated processors of the year. It is a quad-core processor. It has no hyper-threading. It has support for dual-channel memory on a quad-channel memory platform, and Intel is still charging $220 for this. But it is LGA 2066. It will slot into an LGA 2066 motherboard, just not this one I've chosen. But we of course need to cool that CPU, so I've decided, since we've invested so much otherwise, we should probably get a nice budget CPU cooler in there. So I just sorted by price. I did a parametric filter here, and there was actually a really horrendous CPU cooler in here before. It was very akin to, like, oh yeah, it was like one of those like fake Intel stock cooler knockoffs that I thought might have been fun to throw in there. Unfortunately, the price apparently has gone up on that, so you can get the Deepcool Gamax 400. This is like a Hyper 212 kind of variant, which I bet is actually a halfway decent cooler. And hey, for $15, like that's a great deal right there. That'll keep our 7640X nice and cool. Motherboard, of course, the Rampage 6 Extreme, $650 frickin' dollars for this thing, but it is absolutely just decked out with crazy features and everything, so it's just sacrilege to even consider dropping a 7640X in here, which is why Asus said, no, we're not even going to support it on the platform. But if you're willing to overlook that, let's move on to our memory configuration. We have dual channel memory support with this CPU, but again, got to keep that upgrade path option available. So I went with a single stick of 8 gig memory from Crucial Ballistics, just the Ballistics Sport there. Could have gone with a single 4 gig stick, but you know, I can only be so cruel to you guys. For our graphics card, we of course have the vaunted Radeon RX VEGA 64. This is the reference edition from Power Color. Only priced about, actually that's somewhat reasonable. It's only about $70 to $100 over the suggested retail price for these GPUs right now. So I figured grab 2 of those, probably drop them into a Crossfire configuration. At least we can still call it Crossfire for now. And that should get you set up for graphics cards. Since this is a high-end build, of course, we gotta have lots of space for future expansion. Not that we can add too much more to this motherboard, since we've only got 16 PCIe lanes from the CPU, but with the Cosmos 700p from Cooler Master, recently released high-end case. It's only about $300, so it's only about actually less than $100 more than our CPU. And then of course, never skimp on the power supply, guys. So we got the Corsair AX 1500i 1500 watt power supply here. Really high-end power supply. It's been kind of the gold standard titanium rated power supply for quite some time. And then you might have noticed that I didn't get into storage yet, and here was kind of my other funnest part of this particular build. Was I decided to go with some next generation storage, and of course we all know that Intel's Optane memory technology is pretty amazing when it comes to performance, read and write speeds, but mainly input-output operations per second. They're pretty crazy. So you can get them in a 32 gig capacity that's meant to act as Optane memory and be like a cache for a hard drive, but there's nothing that stops you from just using these as SSDs. So we have plenty of expandability on our motherboard itself, so I went with 4 of these. That's right, 4 32 gig Intel Optane memory modules at only about $80 each. Gives you, for the low price of about $320, a 256 gig NVMe SSD RAID array. But I'd have to point out that you will need a riser card, since there's only 3 actual M.2 slots on this motherboard. So I went with a Super Ghetto green one for just PCIe 3.0x4 riser cards. So point being, most of the system won't actually function, but You could get a $500 LGA 2066 motherboard that I believe is compatible with this CPU, and then you could theoretically put all this together. You might need to pay extra money for Intel's VROC module in order to put all of your Intel Optane memory modules into an NVMe RAID array and boot off of it. So that might be an added expense, although we're still not totally sure. Intel has not been forthcoming with the prices for the VROC add-on dongles to enable bootable NVMe RAID arrays. So you might have to just like RAID a couple of these through the chipset and then maybe one or two just directly with the software RAID, but I'm sure you could get up and running. And I mean, you got Optane on there and 256 gigs of SSD support. You're golden. All right, guys, one more bonus build since my first build was kind of a rehash and my second build was kind of impractical. Let's actually follow up with the real builds that you guys, I would say, could build if you're into Intel. Now, I am not going to address the Intel versus AMD arguments here. That's not what this video is about. But if you've looked at that and you've decided that a 6-core Intel Coffee Lake processor is your cup of tea, probably if you're mainly focused on gaming, then the i5-8600K can be had for $280. Which is a pretty decent bump up over the 7600K, but you do get 6 cores rather than 4, so that is nice, and it is unlocked for overclocking. So one of the somewhat reasonable CPUs that you can buy on Coffee Lake right now because it's unlocked for overclocking, so it matches up with the motherboards and everything. Anyway, this total build is going to be somewhere between $1,223. I'll say I'm going to say $1,250 in the actual description since, you know, sometimes I count mail-in rebates and sometimes I don't. But beyond the CPU, you've got Cooler Master Air Pro 4 CPU cooler, available for as little as $30 right now if you include a rebate. Solid air cooler, you know, gets the job done kind of in the same tradition of the Hyper 212 family, but it's got a nice black plate over the top that makes it look quite a bit cleaner from the visually speaking. We need a motherboard. You can get these for as cheap as like $120, $130 with Z370 chipsets, but those are pretty cut down. So I went with the Gigabyte Z370 Aorus Ultra Gaming. This is a board I've actually had some hands-on time with, and one of my requirements for this was actually that it has the USB 3.1 Gen 2 front panel header on here, and this board does. That seems to be hard to find, actually, with these motherboards, so take a close look if that's something that you're interested in. Of course, your case needs to have that adapter too, or check out my video on adding one of those yourself if you can find the adapter cable from Leon Lee or elsewhere. Beyond that, you know, you have a solid feature set. You've got two-way GPU support. You have your SATA and your M.2 connections, 2 M.2 slots on this board, some decent power delivery as well as cooling for that power delivery for overclocking, and of course you got some RGB LEDs because everyone's got to have those. Pretty solid feature set for $170 from Gigabytes. Next up, we need memory. This is a 16 gig or 2x8 gig kit, which is what I'd recommend for this particular build. You could go with 8 gigs just to get you by if you really wanted to save some money. Found this G.Skill kit, Newegg Business, for about $150, but you're probably going to spend between $150 and $170 for a 16 gig 2x8 gig kit right now. For storage, I've gone with a parametric filter again, and you should be able to find a 250 or 250 gig SSD for about $80 right now. Bear in mind, if you're looking by price per gig, which is a good way to sort if you're on PC Part Picker and you're looking up storage, $80 again is that price, and there's a few options down there. It does start to ramp up relatively quickly once you get too far beyond that. But I do want to mention, if you're sorting by price per gig and you include not just 250 gig but also the 500 gig SSDs, you can get a little bit better price per gig options there. 525, 500 gig versions for $140 to $150 available there, but of course then you're spending a decent amount more money. 250 gigs you should be able to get by with and won't have too much issue, and you can of course always add storage in the future. Now for a graphics card, once again, GTX 1070. It is the more reasonably priced option when it comes to mid to high range graphics cards, and you can get this one for as little as $380. Follow up with the stuff I said earlier in the video about other GTX 1070 options. For a case, just went with an NZXT S340 in black because it is a very solid all-around case with good airflow and looks, and you can get it for about $65. Of course, there's lots of cases in this price range, so if you like one that looks different, then do that too. Finally, power supply, EVGA 650 watt. This is again the 650 GQ. the baby brother to the 750 GQ that I talked about in the other build. And yeah, only about $72-ish, and also some mail-in rebates available there as well. So, as you can see, you can part out a PC right now without going too far over budget, although there are still some ongoing issues, as mentioned in my video that I posted earlier this week, with GPU prices in particular on the AMD side is hurting the most, and then of course those memory prices are really putting the screws to anyone who is trying to build a budget system right now. But if you want to build, don't let that set you back. When you're talking about, say, a $1,200-ish build and you're talking about spending, $60 more on a memory kit, it's not that much, but it is something you should take a close look at and make sure that you're getting the best price that you can right now. And make sure that you're not buying memory that's like really, really low speed, because you do get a little bit of extra boost from getting memory that's in the, say, 2800, 3000, maybe 3200 range when it comes to DDR4 memory speeds. But guys, that is gonna wrap it up for this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. Of course, actual builds via the builds playlist in the description down below. I'm gonna be building that X99 system very soon, and I've got lots of other videos planned coming down the pipeline too. Arctic Panther is almost done, and that's actually what I'm gonna be working on next, right after I finish this. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hit the thumbs up button, of course, if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys next time.